Good morning and welcome to this webinar. Today, we'll dive into the world of headless content management systems and help you understand the different approaches and the reasoning behind selecting the right one for your business. We'll be covering 4 content management systems today, and originally intended to be presented by 4 experts from I/O, but unfortunately, Jori is ill today. So the 3 of us will be presenting all 4 CMSs.
Yeah, and I think between the 3 of us, with us combined, we're almost one sanity expert, so I think we should be fine.
I guess so. We'll do our best to cover for him. But if you have specific or detailed questions about sanity, we'll be happy to arrange a one-on-one with Jori after this webinar.
Yes, so to start, my name is Leon Semerdink. I've been a software engineer with I/O for over 10 years. I've seen many CMSs in the past, but recently, or for the past couple of years, I've been very active within Content Stack, and I've been working with them really well. I like the platform, and I'm here presenting their side of the CMS, the Headless CMS Pie, as a Content Stack expert.
Yeah, over to me. I'm William Parr. I've been working at I/O for 12 years in a multi-client team who services several Optimizely clients. And as a tech lead, and besides that, I'm also the Optimizely chapter lead at I/O, which means I'm basically very invested in the partnership between I/O and Optimizely. I take care of a lot of capability building within I/O, and any questions that are asked internally or by clients, I'm there to help them out.
Thank you. My name is Rob Habrake. I'm a technology director at I/O, and as a Sidecore chapter lead, I lead the Sidecore practice within I/O. I have over 18 years of experience as both a developer and an architect, helping our customers get the most out of their enterprise Sidecore platforms. I/O is a leading digital agency that creates impact across 4 key business domains. And we do serve a wide variety of sectors and industries. And this is I/O in figures. And as you can see, we have over 20 years of experience in digital, including a strong track record of implementing content management systems, which is also what prompted this webinar, because we frequently receive questions from clients about how the different content management systems compare to each other. And so that's why we are presenting this Headless CMS Showdown to you today. We will be recording this webinar, and this will be shared with you afterwards, and you also have an opportunity to ask questions. We do have a Q&A at the end of this webinar, so please leave your questions in the chat, and we'll get back to that at the end of the webinar.
Yep.
We have 3 main topics today regarding headless CMSs, but before we go to the actual topics, I'd like to talk a bit about the definition of headless. So what is a headless CMS? A headless CMS is defined as a CMS that separates the front end from the back end code and uses an API-first architecture. That means that the content is exposed via APIs, and you have the full freedom of choice to pick your own front-end framework. And this also allows for multi-channel publishing. Opposed to the traditional architecture, we can push content to mobile, e-commerce platforms, and obviously also AI.
Yeah, so starting with theme 1, we want to talk about a content structure and how that works within a headless CMS. We have the headless CMS, we have the multimodal setup, not just content for websites anymore, but also content for social media, for mobile apps, for other platforms. But that poses a challenge as well, because that means that the website structure, which was currently key to the CMS, that also structured the CMS, that is now also not really prevalent anymore within the CMS. Well, some still have it, but others not so much. So yeah, what does that mean in practice? So maybe for Sitecore, which still has it, maybe
Yeah.
you can.
Indeed, what you see is that multiple CMSs part way from using a tree structure to present the content, and Sitecore is one of the systems that still sticks to the content tree structure. And the benefit of that is that you have a lot of more insight into how your content is structured, and also that your and that's the more technical side of it, that your page routing in the CMS is also done by Sitecore. So I think a lot of headless CMSs leave the page routing and the URL structure entirely up to the front end, and you have to implement it yourself. Whereas Sitecore still gives you this via their content SDK. So their front-end framework supports page routing and things like multilingual and versioning. You don't have to do that yourself. But this also means that you are sticking a bit more to the traditional content tree view.
I think that's common to see in the more traditional CMSs, such as Sitecore, but also, for example, Optimizely. In the old days, they would just have the site tree, the content structure there. But in adapting to the new landscape with headless CMSs, they often offer both flavors. So you can either go for traditional site tree setup, or as you see here on screen, for Optimizely Content Manager, where you see all of your content is unstructured, as in that is not a typical site tree, but you see all your internal and external content in one overview. And now that I have this up on the screen, talking about Optimizely, they actually dubbed themselves, well, they have this Optimizely One idea, and that is dubbed as the operating system for marketers. It's the tools that marketers love. And as you see here, they guide their customers through each step of the way. They start with their orchestration, they move on to monetizing, and finally experimentation. And what I've highlighted here are the steps of the orchestration lifecycle. So basically, they have a content marketing platform, CMP, in which you can actually collaborate on creating content, and then using omnichannel publishing, you can push that to your CMS or to your commerce or a mobile app, any system. But we're talking about CMSs here, so I'll keep it to that. And once you push your content into CMS, you can see it in your content manager, as seen here. If you move to the next slide, what you see here is that in Optimized CMS, they use this visual builder. And you're not really talking about pages anymore, you're talking about experiences. So with the visual builder, you create an experience, you define sections, rows, and columns, and you can see a live preview of what you're editing at that moment. So as you're typing your text, you'll see it show up on your live preview page. And all of this content is stored in a GraphQL environment, so that it can be used. It's perfect for headless content delivery. So it's a universal standard of GraphQL. And from within the CMS, you could actually use the Explorer to click on content type, click on properties. It would generate a query that you can pass on to your developers to use in their apps.
Well, that's actually exactly the same in Sitecore. Although we still have the content tree as a structure for content, we also have GraphQL to query it. And that means you're very flexible in querying content from the front end, regardless of the fact that it is structured as a tree. How's that for Content Stack?
Yeah, it's the same in Content Stack, actually. The GraphQL API, and they support us as developers really well with a nice view as well within Content Stack, where you can put your query together. You can select what data you want to get from the CMS and what data you do not want to get as a developer. And pretty similar, I think, to your platforms, but it is really powerful to not just make that website, but also support that app and stuff. Going back a little bit to content structure and how you edit it, within Content Stack, it's the same thing. There's live previews, there is where you have the form, but then the site itself is shown in an iframe on the side, and it is live updating, all that kind of stuff. And that's really cool. Content Stack really supports that in their UI, but us as developers, we sometimes do still have to make some tooling around that, and we still have to empower those things as well, especially also because Content Stack is not necessarily website first. But then again, the live preview is powered by a website, etc., etc. So if you want to show the mobile views in that, there is a little bit more work for us to do as a dev to also make sure that those mobile views show in those live previews as you would expect as a user.
I think that's also good to mention Sanity, actually, because development experience is something Sanity really focuses on. It leaves a lot more room for you to structure your content the way you like it. And it also gives you a little bit more flexibility. I think Sanity is presenting itself as a content a very content first approach on looking at the platform, so not so much as a site, and it leaves a lot of room for maybe more code driven customizations, and I think that's what makes Sanity very powerful.
Yeah. And the way where you see that best, I think, is Jori would want us to say something about the Feyenoord case, which he is really proud of. So because that really shows the power of Sanity, where content is, you can see on the left here, the content is being edited in the CMS, but then it is shown live on the phone, and I know this is a vertical screenshot, but it is actually a screen grab of a TV view. And it's even also shown on the monitors within the Feyenoord cantinas and stuff like that. And that's all coming from the same CMS. It's the same imagery, the same content structure. And that makes it a really
flexible CMS for yourself.
Exactly.
And I should say, as an advocate of Psycho, that we would also be absolutely able to do this. But I think the difference is maybe more how also to guide your content editors and marketers working on the content. So while technically everything is possible in each of our CMSs, it's the way how content is proposed and managed and what your users are used to. So if you are used to working in a content tree and envisioning your website as your main platform or your main channel, then it's easier to work with a CMS that also supports that kind of structure. If you think of content more as a collection of content items that could be managed and changed individually from wherever they may be shown, then Sanity would possibly fit better if you look at the user experience for your content editors and your marketers.
Yeah, I think where it stands out is Sanity makes the content a first-class citizen, so they strip away all the noise, and it's just about the content, and you can take that wherever you want to go with it. So it's not so much about the tool, but more about the content.
Yeah, exactly. And they leave all the styling and how it is going to look in the end. They leave that more up to the front-end devs, actually the teams that we usually leave. And it is not shown within the CMS, which is very
there's one thing within the topic of content structure I wanted to touch on shortly. I didn't get to that. That's on my final optimizing slide. It's actually how not only we talking about content structure, how it's structured in the CMS, but what can the CMS do for you in creating content? And what I think is actually really cool with Optimizely is they have their own AI product, as many vendors do nowadays. It's called Opal, and it's fully integrated into the CMS and into each of their products. But in the CMS, you can actually use Opal agents to create content, or the developers can create content types using Opal. And it has the full context of what the page is that you're viewing in the CMS currently. So you can ask Opal to analyze this page and say, is this the correct content? Is it correctly placed in the hierarchy of the site tree? But also, if you'd like to generate images, you can have Opal do that for you to add to the page. And if a page is ready to go to another business unit, a localized business unit, you can ask Opal to translate this page into another language. So it will create a new language branch within your CMS for that page and publish it for you. So it actually helps you to accelerate the content creation.
And that's a common innovation that we see. Psycho AI also offers an agentic experience and has Psycho Studio to help you with doing those things. I will show a bit about that later on. But indeed, you have to think about different angles when working with a CMS. It's not only how you deliver content, it's, as you said, how a marketer or how a content editor works with it, but also, and that's something we look at it as well, how you as a developer work with a CMS. And the benefit of Psycho having maybe more opinionated way of using the content structure and a content SDK makes it that you have to also use that content SDK, that front end dependency to actually leverage all the features. I must say, Sitecore has a Next.js SDK, which would naturally mean that you preferably work with that. But within IO, we're also experienced working with other frameworks as well.
Yeah.
And we're currently also working on a Next.js version. Yeah. So you see that the market will also introduce its own flexibility around that. But it's something you have to take into account when you select the CMS, that it's multiple stakeholders from marketer to developers.
Yeah, because you mentioned you are developing that Next framework yourself a little bit, or you're using the...
Well, we're using the standard because there's a lot of basic TypeScript foundation in that framework agnostic, actually.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be limited to only using a Next if the platform or the customer asks for using a specific front-end framework. And that's, again, one of the benefits of using Headless is that you have freedom of choice in the front-end framework.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because for content stack, it's the same thing. Our preferred stack is Next.js, but sometimes we are required to develop with another framework because it fits the project better, or it fits the customer better. For content stack, it's really nice that they decided to go with the TypeScript library, so it automatically works with Next.js, with Next.js. With Vue, for example. And they're also offering mobile SDK, so it's easy to implement Android and iOS apps. You get a lot of integration with content stack. You get that for free with those apps, and you can start getting up to speed easier. The same as the Graph API Explorer, the SDKs tie into that as well.
And that's also the case for Sanity. It's fully front-end framework agnostic.
I'm hearing a lot of similarities. I think we're more alike than we think sometimes. There are repositories with starter kits for Vue.js or Next.js for each of our CMSs, I think.
Yeah, and I think that is, we're now talking about how you get content out of the CMS and how you're developing your website and your front end, but how are you actually interacting with the CMS, and how are you going beyond what the UI offers, which is our next theme, which we've dubbed customizability. So how do you go, like I said, beyond what the CMS offers? Because sometimes, you want...
The reason why we also thought it's a good idea to bring up this topic is because we see that the market is moving more and more to SaaS software as CMSs, and that makes you question, do I have enough customizability to fit the CMS in my organization? And maybe it's a good idea to explain, William, what the difference is between...
Yeah, definitely. I have something for that. I've been speaking about Optimizy up until now as the CMS, but they have two CMS offerings actually. They have a PaaS CMS and a SaaS CMS. So you have platform as a service or software as a service. And what's actually interesting is 2 weeks ago, they just released the newest version of their PaaS CMS, CMS 13. And as you can see on the left visual here, there are not really that many differences between a PaaS and a SaaS CMS, at least from Optimizy perspective. But with the release of the newest version of the PaaS CMS, they're closing the gap even more. They're starting to talk about CMS Core. So when they develop a feature, they will release it to CMS Core. It will be available for PaaS and for SaaS.
Is that then how you get to pizza as a service, or?
Yeah. So I thought it was a nice analogy. So for those who are not privy to the information we may have, think of it as pizza as a service. So if you want to have a pizza, you go out to the supermarket, you can buy it, come home, put it in your oven, eat it. Now you could order a pizza, you could go out and dine and get a pizza from the restaurant. And the more you take things out of your own hands, like for a software as a service, you're going to the restaurant, you're being waited on, they're taking care of all of your needs. That's basically what a SaaS CMS is. So you don't have to worry about the CMS itself, you don't have to worry about the infrastructure, about deployments, upgrades. That's all covered by the vendor from their SaaS environment. And in the PaaS environment, we as IO would be the ones actually delivering the CMS to the server, to where it's hosted. And that means we also get more freedom in the customizability. So we can change what the CMS looks like, we can add custom integrations to it, and so on.
So you're saying that if I go to a restaurant, I not only want to choose the toppings from the menu, but I want also to customize what I want as a topping on my pizza, right?
Yeah, that's definitely right.
Okay, so and that's also what we see as a ongoing development in the SaaS way of actually positioning a CMS, because it fits the headless architecture very well. Your CMS is something you don't have to maintain. You don't have to fully maintain the architecture and the infrastructure behind the CMS, but you want full control over the front end. So we often see that we host the front end ourselves and have the CMS hosted SaaS, where it's been all taken care of by the vendor. But still, we want to change some things, like maybe we want to have an editor panel within the CMS as a content editor that doesn't exist. Or maybe we want to create an integration with our PIM, our product information management system, and have a view of all of the products, but also available in the CMS. And that's what traditionally led to customizing the CMS code itself. And now our CMSs have better ways to cope with this. If you take a look at Insightcore, which also, like you described, has a live preview panel of the site and a custom panel on the right with all of the options that you can alter the content with. We also have things like custom fields or creating custom components that go there. So not only custom components within the website, but also for your content editor, and you can integrate with that as well. Sitecore offers webhooks to trigger events outside of your platform from within the CMS, but also the authoring API that you can update content from externally. But the latest innovation, and I think this is the biggest and the best one, is the Marketer MCP, which allows for AI-based integrations. So we can actually order things like create a new component like this or that, or maybe also migrate content from one platform to another and have that created within the CMS.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, because it is MCP, you don't have to do that from within the CMS. You can actually do that from your code editor. As a software developer, you're editing your code in an IDE, integrated developer environment, and those can be loaded with those MCP servers, which actually expose those features of the CMS to where you're writing the code. So you can make UI changes by talking to your AI agent and telling them how the content model, in this case, I think, should change. Or you can ask them to generate test data just on develop, of course. And AI is definitely keeping to that these days, so that's good. Because that is something I think Optimizely has been working on, but Content Stack has also been working on. They call that Agent OS. Which allows you to create those agents within the CMS, and they are not just MCP based. They can be exposed through MCP and to that editor, but they can also be exposed to the chat GPTs that you may be using, or they can be exposed to our own platform, for example, IO Bonsai. We're currently working on an integration project with our IO Bonsai platform to make your Content Stack platform manageable from within IO Bonsai. So those kinds of things we're working on. And you can see here that Content Stack have called their own internal AI. They call it Polaris, and they have access to those custom agents, and then you can actually talk to, you can actually use that to make changes within the CMS. But you can also use the digital concierge version to pull that out of the CMS.
I think basically with an MCP, what we're saying is that you can use it to facilitate the CMS in consuming data or sending data to other areas. For example, the AI agent from Content Stack could communicate with Opa from Optimizely or with Sitecore AI through the MCPs.
And you can, like using IO Bonsai, for example, you can integrate it with other data that's not in your CMS and maybe you don't want to have all of your customer data in your CMS because that would be a security vulnerability. But you want to communicate with your profiles and your customers and create experiences that fit that as well. So you can actually bridge the gap between different systems and do some analysis on your content, but also do an analysis on your branding and have
SEO,
your geo, and have that updated within your CMS. And so actually we're moving beyond only the editor and the possibilities of your CMS itself, and you can extend that. And I think in terms of customizability, that's a great innovation.
Yeah. But maybe it's also good to take it a little bit more back from AI to more the traditional customizability, where again we have to promote sanity as well here, because as it says on the slide, customizability is the unique selling point for sanity. Their code base is fully open source, which makes it even easier to make those changes to the CMS. To update the UI exactly how you would want it.
Yeah, I've heard Joyce talk about this before, obviously, and he spoke highly of how, as a developer, it's amazing because when you use Sanity, you actually provide it with a blank slate, and then you are free to set the UI up exactly how you need and tailor it to your own workflow that you need as a developer, but also as a marketer.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's highly customizable, Sanity.
Exactly. And it differs in that regard from Cycle, where you have the marketplace to create your own modules on top of. Sanity is more customizable from the get-go. So you can set up your environment exactly how you need it and what your content management requirements are.
Yeah. For example, comparing it to Content Stack also offers a marketplace. And as a developer, you can create custom solutions for that marketplace, but Content Stack controls where those custom solutions can be used. So you can, as a developer, I can create custom fields that work slightly differently than the standard fields you have within the CMS. Or I could develop a feature that does something with automations automatically. But with Sanity, you can completely change the UI layout. You can implement very different workflows, for example, if that's what you would want. If you already have a specific workflow that works really well, Sanity is there to also take in that workflow and to have it developed exactly to spec as you would want.
Yeah, speaking of marketplace, that brings me back to a topic that I will actually want to get into a little bit more. And that is, okay, so you have a SaaS CMS and a PaaS CMS. But why would you choose for one of the two? When would the SaaS be the best solution? When would PaaS be the best solution? I already mentioned with the SaaS CMS, it's not possible to customize the CMS itself because it's not your responsibility.
In case of Optimizely,
in Optimizely, sorry. But so why would you choose for the SaaS CMS? Well, it's not restricted fully. It is true that there's a marketplace that you can use to add add-ons onto the CMS. Whereas with the PaaS CMS, you would be responsible for us as developers. We could install the add-ons ourselves. For the SaaS CMS, you'd have to go to the marketplace. But beyond that, if you want to customize the CMS, you can't actually edit the code, but there is a modeling API that you can use to modify content through the API from the front end, pull out content types, modify them, push them back to the CMS. But also you can pull in external content sources. So if you have other CMSs or you have a PIM or a CRM, you can pull in the content from there to the SaaS CMS, and then it lives here in the external content sources where it's fully indexable and searchable, taggable. It becomes fully qualified content for your CMS, despite not having a customizable CMS.
Yeah, but in Content Stack, we would have to build it as a plugin ourselves. So that's a really nice feature to have. Cool. Maybe one more thing, because you also mentioned hosting, and I think that's also a very good thing to touch upon, because with CMSs previously, traditional CMSs also contained all the HTML and all the JavaScript that would make up the full website. But with a Headless CMS, it just contains the content. So that does mean that HTML and that JavaScript has to be hosted somewhere.
Exactly.
So
yeah, there's multiple ways to do that. there's some platforms that work exactly like the SaaS principle of a headless CMS that we explained, but then for the front end, and I'm talking about platforms like Vercel and Netlify, and they take all of the hosting away from you, and they arrange everything you need to only deploy your code to that platform, and also take care of scalability, caching, CDN, all of the underlying stuff. But you can also very well do that on your own Azure or AWS tenant, for example, or even host it yourself if you would like in your private cloud. So we're very flexible in that, and we offer multiple ways from IO to do that to your likings and to your requirements of scalability.
I think that's the beauty of a headless CMS, because you're basically just free to store your front end wherever you want to. Many of the CMS vendors, they have partnerships with Indeed, Netlify, Vercel, and so on. Optimize also offers the front end hosting in their own DXP to separate the CMS from the front end. But of course, you can host it yourself, so you're free to take your front end wherever you want to. You don't have a vendor lock-in in that regard.
Yep,
exactly.
Yeah, because Content Stack, I think, did something interesting because they saw this gap between from customers coming from a traditional CMS going to their CMS, and then, but where do I host my website?
Yeah.
So Content Stack actually came with the launch platform that I should not do that. I'm so sorry. Let's go back to the slides. Apologies. And then we do this. Apologies. So I was looking for a slide. I cannot find it. It's okay. I will just do it from the top of my head. So where they integrated the hosting within the headless platform, but without making the site depend on the content again. So they actually have two separated platforms for the content. So a very content-focused CMS, but also with the Content Stack launch platform to do the hosting. And the hosting is then taken care of by them. They make sure that what you mentioned, the CDN, the making it available, etc., is being taken care of for you. And we are an agency, so in that case, it's also being taken care of for us, which is really nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a segue into our third theme, I think, DXP and composability. I can't talk about Optimize and not talk about how they also offer DXP. I think that's exactly where they shine. As I touched on in the first theme, they have Optimize One, which is that whole wheel of different types of products. And I think what the cool thing is that they're not only are they all fully composable, so you could actually plug in web experimentation for A/B testing to Sitecore, or you could plug in the content marketing platform for orchestrating content into Content Stack. It's all possible, but of course they all work perfectly together as well, and they're all fully integrated with each other. So I think looking at my first slide from Optimizely for DXP and composability, what you actually see here is that you're in the SaaS CMS, and Optimize also offers a DAM, a digital asset management, and that of course has far more capabilities than a traditional media library in the CMS would have. Think of creating different renditions of an image, using AI to tag the image, coming up with the alt texts, all kinds of traditional DAM features that you would expect. So in the SaaS CMS, you can not only just choose to use your media library, but you can have the actual DAM product embedded into the CMS, so that all of your assets are readily available for you wherever you are. And alongside that, when you want to try out some content, you're free to temporarily clone an environment to test out some content changes there without disrupting live traffic. And then if you're satisfied with what you see, you can push that to the live environment.
Yeah, because that's what this topic is about. It's about the platforms and the features that are offered outside of the CMS. Yeah. So for example, with Content Stack, I already talked about launch, but you also see Content Stack offers a DAM as well, as you mentioned. They offer a CDP. They actually acquired Lytics a couple of years ago, and they are recently making the latest releases of Content Stack actually bring that integration of Lytics, the customer data platform, into the CMS. And what that means is that the analyses that you do on your data within Lytics, within the CDP, and the audiences that you create actually can be piped into Content Stack's personalized feature, where you can create variants directly for the audiences that you created with Analytics. They show up in Personalize, and that makes it all really easy to offer those personalizations, to make those changes that drive conversion in your website.
Yeah.
Yep, that's very cool. I think I can join the two of you when I talk about Sycor and DXP. As a term, DXP stands for a digital experience platform, and is basically the entire. I think it's a good idea to mention that the entire landscape that makes up your digital platform.
Yep.
Whereas content management systems tend to solely focus on content.
Mm-hmm.
But what is content? Because content can also be digital assets, like you said, and like that, Sycor also offers them. And it also has an entire studio to bridge the gap between all of your different content and DXP stages, like personalization, but also workflow management and managing your actual content. So it's very powerful in that. And with Sycor AI, it tends to shift focus from having separate capabilities as a DXP to offering you one integrated experience with an agentic interface. So you can actually order the different steps within your content lifecycle from within that interface. And I think that's also a little bit different. I think that in that regard, it's really a pity that Jori isn't here with us today, because Sanity is the outlier in this case. It's not a DXP, but it wants to be the best CMS. But being composable, like all of the systems that we used, you can use Sanity with every digital asset management system that you like. It's API first, so you can make it talk to other systems as well, and have it be a part in your DXP, where Sanity is excellent, where Sanity is actually the expert in your content management.
Yeah, because that is the thing, because Sanity is so highly customizable. They also attract a lot of developers who love working with it. That builds a community, and that community has created, I think, lots of plugins for all different kinds of DAM solutions that are already out there that do not necessarily that are not necessarily integrated in Content Stack, like a binder and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And Sanity has plugins, etc., to work easily with that, which Content Stack does as well for Binder specifically. But there may be one that you.
And that brings up when you are selecting a CMS, but you already have a DAM or you already have a personalization engine, you don't actually need to pick a CMS that offers all of those capabilities. And I think that's where Sanity comes in. But you can also equally well use any of our CMSs to do exactly the same, because I think Content Stack is also very well positioned as a composable CMS, isn't it?
Yeah, API first makes that automatically the case. So all features that Content Stack offers as a CMS, as a platform, they are exposed through APIs. And that us as developers, we know what to do with that. That allows us to tie in those external DAMs. Should there not be a marketplace app for it, it's not a stretch or that complicated to build that plugin ourselves for Content Stack. Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard you both mention personalization and variations, for example.
Yep.
That's something that I also like to speak on shortly, because personalized content is also content, of course. The metrics on personalization is also content, but then more content for the marketeers. So that's actually on my next slide after this one. Optimize has two different experimentation platforms, web experimentation, feature experimentation. The former is for A/B testing, which is client-side, and the latter is for feature flags, server-side testing. And both of these products can also be fully integrated into the SaaS CMS. What you actually see here on the first screenshot is that you're looking at a running A/B test on your website, inside your Visual Builder,
Mhm.
and you can ask Opal, for example, here another product being integrated to the DXP workflow.
Hmm.
You can ask Opal, hey, could you analyze these the statistics on this A/B test for me and predict what the outcome will be? So you can take action beforehand and perhaps accelerate your A/B testing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's pretty cool that the personalization is also a first-class citizen within the CMS, not only in its own standalone product.
Yep.
Exactly, and well, yeah, that's also the case for Cycle. We can do a lot of personalization and also tie that personalization to external systems like your CRM, and that makes it very powerful because I think more and more, and also with AI, and we didn't really touch that topic. I think
AI.
within our talk, yeah. Well, no. We did talk about AI, but we didn't talk about how content should be prepared also to talk with or be used in LLMs, geo.
Yeah.
And we mentioned the geo capabilities, but I think personalization becomes more and more important because when a visitor finds your website and has some information that's tailored to them specifically because they asked an LLM a very specific question, they get a personalized answer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you then click through and you think that's interesting for me and you go to a website,
Mm-hmm.
then if you land on a generic homepage and you can't find the information that you were presented within your LLM chat, like within a minute or so, then I think you're lost and you are going to leave again. So personalization is becoming more and more important in the age of AI and geo.
Yeah,
that's what I was mentioning. But obviously there's.
I think that is a cool topic because I think that is a topic that CMSs are now starting to solve, and they're starting to work on that. They are bringing agents into the CMS that will allow you to do that, etc. But how to solve this really is still.
It's a different angle to AI because we were talking about like Opal and Psycho AI and they all they're all a way to enable you as a worker, as a content editor, as a marketer to do more powerful things with the CMS. But there's also another angle, and that is how to position your content within AI applications that visitors are going to use. Exactly. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and it keeps expanding actually, which makes the DXP even more important than it used to be.
Yeah, that's a perfect setup for something I actually wanted to add to the conversation. That is, it's not my final slide on this, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it's not only for Optimize. I think it's for all the CMSs. They're actually turning into AI-ready CMSs, or as it's called here, AEO, Answer Engine Optimization, Generative Engine Optimization, ready CMSs. So obviously, when you're talking in ChatGPT or our own product Bonsai, and you're looking for information, the AI bots, they crawl the websites and they're trying to discern what is this website about, and the CMSs are playing into that. By actually, on the right here, you see that Optimize has specific geo fields in the CMS, and you can ask Opal to fill those fields for you based on your page, so that when the ChatGPT comes to visit your website, it knows exactly what you want the visitors to have as answers in their chatbot. Did
you add those fields yourself to the content model, or is this
no? These fields are present in SaaS CMS, but also in the recently launched CMS 13.
Yeah, they're default fields then.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. And on top of that, like the LLMS text file, not many people know about that, but it's a file that lives on your server that is also read by AI agents.
It's like robots.
Yeah, like robots, indeed, the robots text file. And that can also be auto-generated by Opal within the CMS. So yeah, as you can tell, the CMS are playing into this by helping you prepare your pages for like Q&As for chatbots. So you can say, okay, these are the topic of the page. These are the best answers. So they don't necessarily get the content from your page, but they get the content that you have defined in your CMS for AI bots.
Awesome. Cool. Having a look at the time as well, I think maybe it is good to take it to the takeaways.
Exactly. I think it's a good idea.
Room for the Q&A.
Yep. Yeah. So as you've heard today, we see a lot of similarities, a lot of different approaches, but in the end, you can acquire the same results with different CMSs, but it really depends on your angle. And that's also that's also one of our takeaways. It really depends. Your choice of the Headless CMS depends on your intended use. So as a marketer, as a content editor, as a developer, and each CMS has its own strength in terms of how it applies and interprets headless technology. And your front-end framework may be a decisive factor in that, because if you want to, and it's not so much only about selecting which framework, but it's also about what do you want to do in that front end? Do you want to handle page routing yourself, or do you want to have everything arranged for you and only focus on implementing a website? Or do you want to build your entire content model experience yourself, like Insanity, and do the page routing because, well, you're going to use the content in different applications anyway, and not only on a website. So that's the last one. Are you going to use your content on your website only? Or are you going to use it multi-channel? And all of those topics really differ per CMS, and you can achieve the same results. But we would advise to, if you have to select your own CMS that you're going to invest in, don't only look at demos and don't only look at feature cards, but all of our vendors actually provide a sandbox or a demo environment. And as IO, we can help you decide based on trying out yourself how the tool is like. Have a workshop and try some tools and see what is your use case. And IO can help you with this.
Yeah, definitely. We can get you set up with a sandbox. We can guide you throughout the way, and for different vendors, perhaps even.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we've done in CMS selection trajectories and projects as well. We've gone from a long list to a short list to fit your practice best, your requirements. But then in the end, it comes down to working with the system and seeing what really works for you.
With the actual end users.
So choosing the best CMS really depends on your unique requirements. And that's something we would like to help you with. And we hope you got some takeaways from our webinar that help you make this choice and or get inspired to look into new features that you've heard today about the CMSs and headless CMSs that they offer, and the possibilities that we can offer you as well. Let's start and go to the Q&A. Okay.
So this is the most exciting part of the presentation. We have to deviate and find out where the chat is.
Yep, it's here. Okay. Let me see if there are any questions. I see a question from Miklas. Do you have any thoughts or advice on working with analytics, tracking, or behavior, A/B tests of multiple single content items across multiple page variants, channels, users, and devices?
Yeah, I think we covered that in the end a little bit with the DXP, with the integrations with the customer data platforms and the CMSs. So if that is something you're really looking forward to, or you really want to use, then focus on selecting a CMS that has that integration tied down to the T, so to say.
Yeah, I think not only the metrics of like an A/B test, for example, but also what I forgot to mention at the end was you can also track geo analytics. So you can see within the CMS, you can see what kind of AI bots are visiting your website, what are they seeing, and what is that doing for my traffic. So that can be analyzed within the CMS.
Yeah, and we also offer such an analysis on geo with IO, but you can also do a lot of within the CMS, like CMSs offer their own analytics, but you also use external tools and combine those that data. The strong point of having your A/B tests within your CMS is that all of your variants and your styling is all guided, and using an external system to do A/B tests on your CMS requires some custom development, but also make sure CMS unaware of all the variations that are. And I think that's important when we move into this agentic age, where as a marketer, you want to instruct the CMS to create personalization and funnels that are coherent across your layout, across your content. And I think in that regard, it becomes more important to do your testing within the CMS.
Yep.
There's another question from Mary. How are the CMS users, specifically the content editors, involved in development in a headless CMS? I think that's an excellent question, actually.
Yep.
We really like to onboard your stakeholders within our. We prefer working agile. We prefer working with sprints. So every sprint we have some goals and we have a demo. But when working on features, it's very important to chat with the content editors in what do you want to achieve, how do you want to work, and when you're developing features, you really need to have that input to get the best application for your use case, right?
Yep. Yeah, and especially with building a new site, I'm a really big fan of allowing you as a customer access to the CMS where we're still working as soon as possible within the project to ask you to test the content models that we came up with to build the pages like you envisioned them and to see if they work for you so that we can make tweaks and updates and optimizations to how we design it as soon as possible, actually.
Yeah, I have an interesting angle, because I would actually say leverage your AI in the CMS to actually help you as a CMS user in content creation. I know, for example, like I mentioned earlier in the talk, you can use an agent, and you could supply them with a use story, for example, with acceptance criteria requirements, and then say, could you create a content type for me? Opal will then, in Optimize, Opal will create a content type with the properties, the correct types of fields, and you can tweak it from there as a regular user. You don't have to be a developer to do that. And on top of that, it's also possible to actually import your designs into the CMS. For example, Figma, many customers use Figma for their designs. You import a new design for a new content type and say, hey, could you determine for me what kind of properties and what kind of blocks I need for this Figma design? And then we'll also go on to create those in the CMS for you. So you're actually giving the developer power to the CMS user. But I wouldn't advise to always do that, but I think it's definitely great to involve the CMS users in the process.
I think it's a requirement to involve content editors as stakeholders during the development process. There's another question from Rolf. How do the different platforms you discussed score on TCO, total cost of ownership? Are they alike, and what is the license model? Well, that's a difficult question in regard to that. It's very flexible, and also it really, and I think that's worth investigating when you're selecting a CMS. I think they could be in the same ballpark, all the four of them, but there's some edge cases, and there's also some ways of different ways of coming up with the license cost. So some CMSs count things like a number of visits annually. Others also take a look at the amount of traffic, or maybe also the amount of content items that you are allowed to have.
But sometimes also the seats, like how many users are actually in the product.
And that makes it so that for one client, it can have a total different outcome than the other. If you have a B2B website with not much traffic, but with like 10 or 15 different sites with all of their maybe white label based styling, then it's going to pan out differently than you have a single website that is high traffic and sees a lot of visits.
Yeah, I think it is fair to say that this conversation should be part of that proof of concept phase as well.
Exactly.
Like, don't just look at what is technically feasible, but also
what are the cost drivers and what does that mean for you?
I think also take composability into account, because are you just looking for a CMS or are you looking for something extra? Oftentimes the vendors, they tend to make a good price based on the combination of products that you're going to take from them.
Okay, true. I don't see any other questions anymore. If you still have questions, please let me know. Let us know. If not, you can contact us afterwards, and we'll be happy to get back to you.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's our webinar coming to an end. I want to thank you all for your attention, and it was a great conversation, and we would happily continue that conversation with you as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to the two of you, and thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen to us.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.